The sensors at Galactic Monitoring Station 7 started screaming warnings across every screen. Commander ZYX Theta's tentacles twitched with anxiety as data poured in from deep space scanners. Something massive was moving through the void between star systems, and it wasn't showing up on any known ship registries. Unknown vessel detected in Sector 9, the automated voice announced. Mass readings indicate battleship classification. Origin unknown. ZYX Theta slithered closer to the main display, all 6 of his eyes focusing on the incoming data streams. The readings made no sense. The ship was huge, easily 3 times larger than the biggest consortium warships. Its energy signature pulsed with raw power that made their most advanced reactors look like children's toys. "Give me visual confirmation," ZYX Theta ordered, his translator converting his bubbling speech into standard galactic language. The screen flickered to life, showing a grainy long-range image. What appeared on screen made every being in the command center freeze in shock. The vessel was unlike anything in the known galaxy. Its hull was dark gray metal, scarred and pitted from countless battles. Weapon ports lined its sides like the teeth of some ancient predator. Strange symbols were painted on its hull, angular marks that looked primitive yet somehow menacing. "Sir, I'm detecting active weapon systems," Lieutenant Cree announced, her feathers standing on end. "Energy readings are off the scale. Whatever powers those weapons, we've never seen anything like it." The mysterious ship continued its steady course through space, ignoring all standard communication protocols. It moved with purpose, like a shark swimming through dark waters. Every few seconds, sensor sweeps emanated from the vessel, scanning everything within range. "Should we alert the Consortium Council?" someone asked. Before ZYX Theta could respond, new alarms started blaring. The ship had changed course. It was heading directly toward the nearest inhabited system, the mining colonies of Kepler Station. "By the void," ZYX Theta whispered. "Send emergency alerts to all nearby systems. Whatever that thing is, it's hunting." The next few hours passed in tense silence as they tracked the unknown warship. It moved through space with impossible efficiency, using gravity wells and stellar phenomena to increase its speed. The ship seemed to know exactly where it was going. Then came the first contact. A small pirate fleet had been raiding the outer colonies for months. The Corsair Brotherhood, they called themselves. 12 ships strong, armed with stolen consortium weapons and crewed by the most violent species in known space. They had just finished attacking a transport vessel when the unknown warship appeared on their scanners. The pirates, foolish and greedy, saw only a lone ship far from any protection. They moved to intercept, broadcasting their demands for surrender. The warship didn't slow down. It didn't respond to their threats. It just kept coming. What happened next would become legend throughout the galaxy. The pirates opened fire first, launching everything they had. Plasma cannons, missile barges, even forbidden antimatter weapons. The space around the unknown ship lit up like a star being born. When the explosions cleared, the warship was still there, completely unharmed. Some kind of energy shield had absorbed every attack like raindrops hitting stone. Then, the warship returned fire. A single beam of white-hot energy lanced out from its forward section. The beam was thin, no wider than a shuttlecraft, but it burned with the intensity of a sun. It carved through the pirate flagship like a hot knife through butter, splitting the vessel in half. The 2 pieces drifted apart, spilling atmosphere and bodies into the cold void. The remaining pirate ships tried to scatter, but it was too late. The warship's weapons came alive. Dozens of smaller turrets emerged from hidden ports along its hull. They fired in perfect coordination, each shot finding its target with surgical precision. Pirate ships exploded one after another, turned to expanding clouds of superheated gas and debris. In less than 3 minutes, the entire Corsair Brotherhood was gone. 12 ships and over 1,000 of the galaxy's most feared pirates, eliminated without the unknown warship even slowing down. Back at Monitoring Station 7, ZYX Theta watched the footage in horrified fascination. The warship's efficiency was terrifying. It hadn't wasted a single shot, hadn't taken a single hit that mattered. It fought like a creature born for war. "Sir, I've managed to decode some of the symbols on its hull, Lieutenant Cree said, her voice shaking. The computer says it's from a dead language database, something called English, from a species listed as extinct. Which species? Zoixtheta asked, though he feared he already knew the answer. Humans, sir. The ship is human. The command center erupted in chaos. Humans were a myth, a legend told to frighten younglings. The stories said they were warriors without equal, a species so dangerous that the ancient Galactic Empire had tried to wipe them out completely. But the humans had fought back, and in the end, both the Empire and humanity had vanished into history. That was 5,000 years ago. It's impossible, someone said. Humans are extinct. Everyone knows that. But the evidence was right there on their screens. A human warship, very much active and very much deadly, was moving through their space with unknown purpose. Sir, the ship is broadcasting something, the communications officer announced. It's on all frequencies in hundreds of languages. Put it through the speakers, the Zoixtheta ordered. The voice that filled the command center was deep and mechanical, clearly artificial, but somehow carrying weight and authority. It spoke in perfect galactic standard, though with an accent none of them had ever heard. This is the Earth Federation warship Nemesis. We are searching for our lost colony ship, designation Hope's Dream, last known position in this sector 5,000 years ago. We mean no harm to peaceful species. Pirates, slavers, and those who prey on the innocent will be eliminated without mercy. Any information regarding human survivors or settlements should be transmitted to this vessel immediately. Message repeats. The command center fell silent. The humans weren't extinct. They were looking for their lost people, and they had built warships that could destroy entire fleets without breaking a sweat. Zoixtheta's tentacles trembled as he realized the implications. If this was just one ship, how many more were out there? What had humanity been doing for 5,000 years? And what would happen when they found out what the galaxy had done to any human survivors they discovered over the millennia? The Nemesis continued on its course, patient and relentless. It stopped at every inhabited system, broadcasting its message, scanning for any trace of human DNA or technology. Most species were too terrified to respond. Some tried to hide their slave populations, knowing that humans were prized for their endurance and creativity. But you couldn't hide from the Nemesis. Its sensors could detect human genetic markers from half a system away. And when it found what it was looking for, things got very interesting. The first discovery came at Sigma Station, a trading post run by the Merchant Guild. Deep in the station's lower levels, the Nemesis detected 12 humans. They were slaves used for dangerous maintenance work in the reactor cores. Their ancestors had been captured from a damaged colony ship centuries ago. The station administrator tried to deny it, then tried to negotiate, then tried to threaten. The Nemesis gave him 1 hour to release the humans. When he refused, a single warning shot vaporized an empty cargo bay. The administrator suddenly became very cooperative. The 12 humans were brought to the docking bay, blinking in confusion. They had been slaves their entire lives, their parents and grandparents before them. They barely remembered the stories of Earth, thinking them fairy tales told to ease their suffering. A shuttle emerged from the Nemesis and landed with perfect precision. The ramp lowered, and out walked figures in dark armor. Humans, but like nothing the slaves had ever imagined. They stood tall and proud, their armor humming with barely contained power. Their leader removed his helmet, revealing a scarred face with kind eyes. "Brothers and sisters," he said, his voice carrying across the bay. "You're free now. The Federation has come for you. You're going home." The slaves fell to their knees, not in submission, but in overwhelming emotion. Home, a word they had never dared to believe in. As the rescued humans were led aboard the shuttle, the armored soldier turned to the station administrator. "Spread the word," he said calmly. "Every human in this galaxy will be found and freed. Anyone holding humans against their will has one chance to release them. There will be no second warning." The shuttle departed, and the Nemesis continued on its mission. But now the galaxy knew the humans were back, and they were collecting their people. Panic spread through the slave markets. Species that had built their economies on human labor scrambled to hide their crimes. Some released their human slaves immediately, hoping for mercy. Others dug deeper, building hidden facilities and forging documents. It didn't matter. The Nemesis found them all. System by system, the warship moved through space like an avenging angel. Where humans were treated well, as equals and citizens, the Nemesis passed by with thanks. Where humans were enslaved or oppressed, the response was swift and decisive. Slaver ships vanished in balls of fire. Prison colonies were cracked open like eggs. Entire criminal organizations were systematically dismantled. And with each rescue, the story grew. The humans weren't just back. They had never truly left. Somewhere out in the vast darkness between galaxies, they had built a new civilization. They had developed technologies beyond anyone's imagination. And now they were ready to reclaim their place in the universe. The Consortium Council called emergency sessions, debating how to respond to this new threat. Some advocated for war, others for diplomacy. But in their hearts, they all knew the truth. You couldn't fight what you couldn't match, and nothing in their fleets could match the Nemesis. As the human warship continued its journey, something unexpected began to happen. Other species started coming forward with information. Some had protected human refugees for generations, keeping them safe and hidden. Others had stories of humans who had helped them in the past, showing mercy and kindness even in captivity. The Nemesis acknowledged each act of kindness, marking those species as friends of humanity. It became clear that this wasn't just a rescue mission. It was a reckoning. The galaxy was being judged, and the verdict would reshape everything. Meanwhile, deep in uncharted space, a massive fleet waited for the Nemesis's reports. Hundreds of ships, each as powerful as their scout vessel, stood ready. The Earth Federation had spent 5,000 years preparing for this moment. They had developed weapons that could crack planets, shields that could withstand supernovas, and engines that could fold space itself. But they had also developed patience. They would not conquer through violence unless forced. They would find their people, free them, and offer the galaxy a choice: peace and prosperity as equals, or conflict with a species that had turned warfare into an art form. The first phase of their return was just beginning. The Nemesis was only the herald, announcing humanity's resurrection to a galaxy that had thought them safely extinct. What came next would depend entirely on how the galaxy responded. Back on Monitoring Station 7, Commander Zoyax Theta compiled his reports with trembling tentacles. The unknown warship had been identified, but that knowledge brought no comfort. If anything, it raised more questions than answers. What technologies had the humans developed in their exile? How many ships did they have? What were their true intentions? One thing was certain: the galaxy would never be the same. The humans were back, and they were ready to conquer not through force alone, but through the simple act of refusing to abandon their own. It was a form of power the galaxy had never seen before, and it was unstoppable. The age of humanity's return had begun. 3 months had passed since the Nemesis first appeared, and the galaxy had transformed into a powder keg waiting for a spark. The human warship had rescued over 10,000 of their kind from various systems, and with each liberation, the other species grew more nervous. Markets crashed as slave-dependent economies crumbled. Military alliances formed and dissolved within days as species tried to figure out which side of history they wanted to be on. Admiral Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the Nemesis, reviewing the latest intelligence reports. Her weathered face showed neither satisfaction nor anger, just determination carved by years of preparation. The holographic display before her showed a galaxy in chaos, with different species reacting to humanity's return in wildly different ways. "Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Federation Council," her communications officer announced. "Put it through to my ready room," Chun ordered. The transmission was from Fleet Admiral Marcus Wright, commander of the Earth Federation Navy. His image flickered to life, showing a man who had dedicated his entire life to this moment. Sarah, your mission has been more successful than we anticipated. The galaxy knows we're back. Phase 2 is approved. The fleet will begin jumping in within the week. Chen nodded slowly. The locals aren't going to like that, sir. Some are already mobilizing their forces. Let them, Wright said with a grim smile. They need to understand that the Nemesis isn't our strength, it's our restraint. How are our people? Recovering. Some have been slaves for so many generations, they barely remember what freedom means. But they're learning. The medical teams are working overtime to undo the damage. Any resistance to repatriation? Chen's expression darkened. The Khazari Empire is being particularly stubborn. They claim the humans in their minds are criminals, not slaves. They've refused all requests for inspection. Then, they've chosen their fate. You have permission to demonstrate why defying the Federation is inadvisable. The transmission ended, and Chen returned to the bridge. The Khazari Empire controlled 17 systems, with a fleet of over 300 warships. They were about to learn that numbers meant nothing against human engineering. Navigation, set course for the Khazari border, Chen ordered. All hands, prepare for combat operations. The Nemesis folded space around itself and vanished, reappearing moments later at the edge of Khazari space. As expected, a fleet was waiting for them, 50 ships arranged in a defensive formation. The Khazari had always been proud warriors, their crystalline bodies allowing them to survive in conditions that would kill most species. Admiral, they're hailing us, the communications officer reported. On screen, the image of Supreme Commander Vex appeared, his diamond-hard features gleaming in his ship's lighting. Human vessel, you are in violation of Khazari sovereignty. Withdraw immediately or face destruction. Chun stood, hands clasped behind her back. Supreme Commander, we've given you 3 months to release the humans in your custody. This is your final opportunity. Comply or face the consequences. Vex's crystalline form vibrated with what passed for laughter among his kind. 1 ship against 50? Your arrogance will be your downfall. Human. All ships, attack formation. Destroy the intruder. The Khazari fleet surged forward, their weapons charging. Energy beams and projectiles filled space in a deadly light show. But the Nemesis didn't move. Instead, something extraordinary happened. The space around the human warship began to ripple like water. The incoming fire hit these ripples and simply disappeared, shunted into pocket dimensions where they could do no harm. Then, the Nemesis revealed one of humanity's newer innovations. Drone bays opened along the warship's hull, releasing a swarm of small, dart-shaped vessels. Each drone was no larger than a fighter craft, but they moved with impossible speed and coordination. They danced between enemy fire, their movements perfectly synchronized like a school of fish. The drones attached themselves to the Khazari ship's hulls and began to burn through with concentrated energy beams. Within seconds, they had breached the armor and disappeared inside. The Khazari crews barely had time to react before their ships began shutting down. Systems failed in cascade as the drones targeted power cores, weapons, and life support with surgical precision. One by one, the mighty Khazari warships went dark, floating helplessly in space. Their crews were alive, but trapped in their own vessels, unable to fight or flee. Supreme Commander Vex watched his fleet's destruction in horrified silence. In less than 10 minutes, 50 of his best ships had been neutralized without a single casualty on either side. The human warship hadn't even fired its main weapons. This is a demonstration, Supreme Commander, Admiral Chen said calmly. We could have destroyed your ships. We chose not to. The drones will detach once you agree to our terms. Refuse, and they will begin venting your atmosphere. You have 5 minutes to decide. The choice was no choice at all. Vex transmitted the coordinates of every facility holding human slaves. Within hours, Federation shuttles were collecting their people while Khazari officials watched helplessly. The Empire's reputation as an unconquerable military power evaporated overnight. But the real shock came when the Federation fleet arrived. They emerged from folded space like giants awakening from slumber. First came the destroyers, sleek vessels that made the nemesis look small. Then, the cruisers bristling with weapons that defied conventional physics. Finally, the dreadnoughts appeared, massive city-sized vessels that bent space around them just by existing. 300 Federation ships spread across the galaxy's major trade routes and population centers. They didn't attack or threaten. They simply existed, a visible reminder that humanity had returned in force. The psychological impact was immediate and profound. Species that had been preparing for war suddenly found their military advisors recommending immediate peace negotiations. The balance of power hadn't just shifted, it had been completely overturned. On the trading station of Nexus Prime, representatives from dozens of species gathered to discuss this new reality. The VOM Collective, the Etherian Confederacy, the Machina Syndicate, all the major powers were present, along with countless minor species. Ambassador Crix of the VOM spoke first, his gelatinous form pulsing with agitation. The humans have deployed enough firepower to conquer the entire galaxy. We must unite against this threat before it's too late. Unite with what? Asked the Etherian representative, her gaseous form flickering with skepticism. Did you not see what one ship did to the Khazari fleet? They have technologies we can't even understand, let alone counter. Then we negotiate, suggested the Machina Syndicate speaker, a being of living metal and circuitry. The humans claim they only want their people back. Perhaps if we cooperate fully, they will leave peacefully. Leave? Crix pulsed angrily. They're not going to leave. They're establishing permanent bases in strategic systems. This is an invasion disguised as a rescue mission. The debate raged for hours, but no consensus emerged. Some species advocated for immediate surrender, others for guerrilla resistance, and still others for attempting to steal human technology. Meanwhile, the Federation ships continued their work, methodical and unstoppable. What the galaxy didn't know was that humanity had been monitoring their discussions. Every communication, every secret meeting, every whispered plan was intercepted and analyzed by AI systems that had been perfecting their craft for millennia. In a secure facility on Earth's moon, the Federation Council convened to discuss their findings. President Maria Vasquez presided over representatives from humanity's various colonies and fleets. The intelligence is clear, the director of Galactic Affairs reported. Approximately 30% of species are genuinely willing to coexist peacefully. Another 40% are fence-sitters, waiting to see which way the wind blows. The remaining 30% will likely resist our presence regardless of our intentions. Then, we proceed as planned, President Vasquez decided. We continue the rescues, but we also begin Phase 3. It's time to show the galaxy that we're not just conquerors, we're builders. Phase 3 was humanity's masterstroke. While their warships had demonstrated unmatched military might, their colony ships would demonstrate something far more powerful, prosperity. The first colony ship, Eden's Promise, arrived in the neutral zone between VOM and Etherian space. It was massive, larger even than the dreadnoughts, but it carried no weapons. Instead, it carried technology that would revolutionize life in the galaxy. Within days of arrival, Eden's Promise had deployed automated factories that could convert raw asteroids into finished goods at unprecedented speeds. Medical facilities that could cure diseases thought incurable. Agricultural systems that could feed millions from a handful of seeds. Energy generators that could power entire planets cleanly and efficiently. And they shared it all freely with any species willing to sign a simple agreement. Treat all sentient beings, including humans, with dignity and respect. The response was immediate. Struggling colonies that had survived on the edge of starvation suddenly had abundant food. Species watching their sons die were given technology to rejuvenate them. Plagues that had ravaged populations for generations were eradicated in weeks. The fence-sitters quickly chose their side. Even some of the resistors began to waver. It was one thing to oppose conquerors who brought death. It was another to oppose benefactors who brought life. But not everyone was swayed by gifts. The hegemony of worlds, an alliance of 5 militant species, saw humanity's generosity as weakness to be exploited. They began a campaign of terrorism, attacking human relief ships and bombing facilities under construction. They calculated that humans, softened by their technological superiority, would lack the will for a prolonged conflict. They calculated wrong. The response wasn't immediate destruction, as many expected. Instead, humanity demonstrated another lesson learned during their long exile. Patience was a weapon sharper than any blade. Federation intelligence assets, invisible and omnipresent, mapped every connection within the hegemony. They identified the leaders, the financiers, the weapon suppliers, and the propagandists. Then, with surgical precision, they began to dismantle the organization from within. Leaders found their secret communications leaked to their rivals. Financial accounts emptied overnight, the funds redirected to their victims. Weapons shipments mysteriously vanished in transit. Propaganda networks were hijacked to broadcast the truth about the hegemony's crimes. Within months, the terrorist alliance collapsed under the weight of internal conflict and exposed corruption. Their own people rose up against them, tired of endless war and seeing the prosperity that cooperation with humanity could bring. Admiral Chun, watching from the Nemesis Bridge, allowed herself a small smile. The old Earth generals were right, she told her crew. The supreme excellence is not to win 100 battles, but to defeat the enemy without fighting. As the Federation's influence spread, something unexpected began to happen. Young members of various species started adopting human customs and technology. They learned human languages, studied human history, and embraced human values of individual freedom and dignity. On the planet Kepler-7, a mixed school was established where human children studied alongside young Vom, Etherians, and a dozen other species. It was a radical experiment that many predicted would fail. Instead, it became a model for integration across the galaxy. The children didn't see each other as different species. They saw friends, rivals, and potential partners. When they grew up, they would form the first generation that saw diversity as strength rather than weakness. But the galaxy's transformation wasn't without pain. Many old power structures crumbled as their foundations, often built on exploitation and fear, were exposed and dismantled. Former slave masters found themselves doing manual labor. Corrupt officials who had grown fat on bribes were replaced by administrators chosen for competence rather than connections. Some species struggled to adapt to a galaxy where might didn't automatically make right. The Skorax Imperium, which had ruled 12 systems through brutal oppression, found their subjects empowered with Federation technology and no longer willing to bow. The resulting revolution was swift and largely bloodless, as Skorax military units refused to fire on civilians who now possessed personal shield generators. Through it all, the Federation maintained its dual approach, an iron fist and a velvet glove. Those who chose peace and cooperation found humanity to be the most generous ally imaginable. Those who chose conflict discovered why human military doctrine had evolved beyond simple destruction. Case in point, the Devourer fleet. The Devourers were the galaxy's nightmare, a nomadic species that consumed entire worlds to fuel their endless expansion. They had destroyed dozens of civilizations over the millennia, unstoppable and insatiable. When they entered Federation space, many expected humanity's first true military challenge. The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes. The Devourer fleet, comprising thousands of biomechanical horrors, was met by a single human dreadnought, the ESS Extinction Event. As the name suggested, it was designed for a singular purpose: the complete annihilation of existential threats. The Extinction Event deployed weapons that the galaxy had never imagined. Nanophage swarms that could disassemble matter at the molecular level. Gravity bombs that created temporary black holes. Temporal disruptors that aged sections of enemy ships by millions of years in seconds. But the truly terrifying weapon was the causality cannon. It didn't just destroy ships, it retroactively prevented them from ever existing in the first place. Devourer vessels simply ceased to be, their crews never born, their victories never achieved. Only the Federation's quantum-locked recording systems retained any evidence they had ever existed. When the dust settled, the devourer threat that had plagued the galaxy for eons was gone. Not defeated, not driven back, erased. The message was clear. Humanity had shown remarkable restraints so far, but they possessed weapons that could unmake reality itself if pushed too far. This demonstration had an unexpected effect. Instead of increasing fear of humanity, it actually brought relief to many species. The humans could have conquered the galaxy in days if they wished, could have erased any opposition from the timeline itself. That they chose negotiation and aid instead showed a maturity that the galaxy had rarely seen. The Galactic Council, reformed under new principles of equality and justice, formally recognized the Earth Federation as a member state. It was a largely symbolic gesture. Humanity clearly didn't need anyone's permission to exist, but it represented a fundamental shift in how the galaxy operated. The old ways of might making right were ending. A new age of cooperation and shared prosperity was beginning. And at the heart of it all were the humans, who had returned not as conquerors but as catalysts for change. But even as celebrations erupted across the galaxy, Admiral Chun remained focused on their original mission. There were still humans out there, lost and forgotten in hidden corners of space. The Nemesis and her sister ships continued their patient search, following rumors and genetic traces to find every last member of their species. Each rescue brought new stories. Humans who had preserved their culture in secret for generations. Others who had forgotten their heritage entirely and needed to rediscover what it meant to be human. Some had interbred with other species, creating hybrid children who were welcomed as part of humanity's extended family. The rescues also revealed darker truths. Research facilities where humans had been experimented on to unlock the secrets of their adaptability. Breeding programs designed to create super soldiers using human genetic material. Underground fighting rings where humans were forced to battle for the entertainment of other species. Each atrocity was met with appropriate response. The researchers found their own bodies subjected to the experiments they had inflicted. The breeders discovered their genetic manipulation techniques turned against them. The ring operators were thrown into their own arenas, facing the human gladiators they had enslaved, now armed and very motivated. Justice, the Federation demonstrated, could be as precise as their weapons. The transformation of the galaxy continued at breakneck pace as humanity's influence spread like ripples across a cosmic pond. 6 months after the Federation fleet's arrival, entire sectors had been revolutionized. But with change came resistance, and not all of it was violent. In the crystal spires of the ancient assembly, the galaxy's oldest continuous government, a heated debate raged. The ancients, beings who had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations, were divided on how to respond to humanity's return. Elder Zoram, his form crackling with energy accumulated over millennia, addressed the assembly. We remember the humans from before their exile. They were dangerous then, with primitive technology and fractured nations. Now they return unified and armed with weapons that mock our understanding of physics. We must act before they become unstoppable. They are already unstoppable, countered Elder Yalith, her crystalline body resonating with certainty. What we must decide is whether to embrace this change or be swept away by it. The humans offer partnership, not subjugation. Partnership, Zoram's form flared. They integrate our technologies, learn our weaknesses, position their forces at strategic points. This is conquest by another name, slower, perhaps, but no less complete. The debate might have continued indefinitely, but it was interrupted by an unexpected visitor. The Assembly's ancient shields, impenetrable for 10,000 years, simply ceased to exist as a lone human walked through them, as if they were air. She was unremarkable by human standards. Medium height, graying hair, wearing a simple Federation uniform. But her presence in this sacred space, where no outsider had ever stood, sent shockwaves through the assembly. "Elders," she said, bowing respectfully, I am Ambassador Diana Ross, representing the Earth Federation. I apologize for the intrusion, but your debates about our intentions have gone on long enough. I'm here to provide clarity. Zoram's form brightened with indignation. How dare you breach our sanctum? This is an act of war. Diana smiled sadly. Elder Zoram, if we wanted war with the Assembly, you would already be memories. Your shields, your fleets, your weapons. They're all based on principles we surpassed centuries ago. But we're not here to conquer. We're here to invite you to something greater. She gestured, and holographic images filled the chamber. Star systems transformed by human technology. Species working together in ways unimaginable just years before. Children of a dozen races playing together, their laughter echoing across the cosmos. This is what we offer, Diana continued. Not subjugation, but elevation. Not conquest, but cooperation. The galaxy has stagnated for millennia, locked in cycles of conflict and exploitation. We're breaking those cycles. And if we refuse? Yalith asked quietly. Then, you refuse, Diana shrugged. We won't force you to accept our gifts. But neither will we allow you to interfere with those who choose progress. The old ways are ending, elders. You can be part of building the new, or you can fade into irrelevance. The choice, as always, is yours. She turned to leave and paused. Oh, and your shields are back online. We've also upgraded them to be actually effective against modern weapons. Consider it a gift. As Diana vanished as mysteriously as she had appeared, the assembly fell into stunned silence. The demonstration was clear. Humanity could go anywhere, do anything, and the galaxy's ancient powers were helpless to stop them. But instead of conquering, they were offering partnership. Slowly, one by one, the elders began to see the wisdom in adaptation. Meanwhile, on the frontier world of Haven, a different kind of integration was taking place. The planet had been settled by refugees from various species, all fleeing persecution or poverty. When the Federation arrived offering aid, the desperate colonists had expected conditions, demands, or at least condescension. Instead, they got Lieutenant Commander James Park and his engineering team. Right, Park said, surveying the ramshackle colony from the cargo ramp of his shuttle. First things first, let's get you proper water recycling. Can't build a civilization if you're dying of thirst. The colony leader, a weathered Kothran named Dex, stepped forward cautiously. We have nothing to offer in trade. No resources, no technology, nothing of value. Park grinned. Do we ask for payment? Look, friend, humans have been where you are. Desperate, abandoned, trying to scratch survival from an uncaring universe. The only payment we want is for you to help someone else when you're able. Pay it forward, as we say. Over the next weeks, the transformation was remarkable. Federation engineers worked alongside colonists, teaching as they built. Water purifiers that could extract moisture from the air. Fusion reactors that could run for centuries on common elements. Fabricators that could turn raw materials into tools, shelters, even food. But more than technology, the humans brought something else, hope. Young colonists learned human engineering principles, discovering they could maintain and even improve the new systems. Kothran children played games with human teachers, learning mathematics and science disguised as fun. Even old Dex found himself smiling more, infected by the humans' relentless optimism. I don't understand, he confessed to Park one evening as they watched the sunset from the new community center. Your people have power beyond imagining. Why waste time on a worthless colony like ours? Park was quiet for a moment. Because every life has value, Dex. Every person saved, every child given a chance, every species lifted up, they all matter. The Federation isn't just about human supremacy. It's about raising everyone to their full potential. But surely there must be a catch. A hidden cost. There is, Park admitted. Once we lift you up, you'll be expected to lift others. Once you're fed, you'll be expected to feed the hungry. Once you're safe, you'll be expected to protect the vulnerable. The cost of our help is that someday, you'll help someone else. Dex's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his kind. That's it? That's your insidious plan? To make us kind? Terrible, isn't it? Park grinned. A galaxy full of species actually giving a damn about each other. The old empires must be spinning in their graves. This philosophy was spreading across thousands of worlds, but it wasn't without challenges. On the industrial world of Forge Prime, tensions were rising between human advisors and local manufacturing guilds who saw their monopolies threatened by Federation fabricator technology. Guild Master Torin had built his empire on controlling the means of production. Now humans were giving away machines that could make his factories obsolete. He organized strikes, protests, even sabotage to protect his interests. The Federation response was unexpected. Instead of force, they sent negotiator Maria Santos, a specialist in economic transition. Guild Master Torin, she said during their first meeting, I understand your concerns. You've spent centuries building your manufacturing infrastructure. It seems like we're making it worthless overnight. You are. Torin slammed a metal fist on the table. My workers will starve. My investments will crumble. Will they? Maria activated a holographic display. Let me show you something. This is New Mumbai, a human colony that went through similar transitions. Their manufacturing guilds now design custom products that fabricators produce. They went from making 10,000 identical items to creating 10,000 unique works of art. Their economy didn't collapse. It exploded with creativity. She leaned forward. Fabricators can make anything, but they can't design. They can't innovate. They can't create beauty or meaning. That's where your guilds come in. Instead of competing with mass production, you'll be freed to pursue excellence. It took weeks of negotiation, but eventually, the guilds agreed to a trial program. Within months, Forge Prime had transformed from a world of grimy factories to a hub of innovation. Guild members who had spent their lives making identical components were now artists, designers, and inventors. The economic transformation rippled across the galaxy. Old scarcity-based systems crumbled as Federation technology made basic necessities abundant. But instead of creating lazy dependence, it freed species to pursue higher callings. Art flourished. Science advanced. Cultures that had stagnated for millennia suddenly burst with new ideas. Not everyone adapted smoothly. The merchant princes of Vega, who had grown obscenely wealthy through controlling trade routes, found their services increasingly irrelevant as Federation transport technology made distance meaningless. Some adapted, becoming cultural ambassadors and experienced brokers. Others clung to their old ways and faded into obscurity. The criminal underworld faced similar disruption. Smuggling became pointless when goods could be fabricated anywhere. Piracy was suicide against Federation patrols. Even information brokering lost its edge as humanity's commitment to transparency made secrets harder to keep. Crime didn't disappear, but it evolved. The new underworld dealt in experiences, in handcrafted goods, in services that required the personal touch. It was almost quaint compared to the old days of slavery and murder. But the biggest changes were generational. On the education world of Academy Prime, the first integrated university had opened its doors. Hundreds of species learned together, taught by professors from across the galaxy, including humanity's best educators. The mixing of ideas and perspectives created intellectual explosions. A VOM student's insight into fluid dynamics combined with human engineering principles to create new drive systems. An Etherian's understanding of gaseous states merged with human medical knowledge to cure diseases that had plagued a dozen species. A young human's question about Kothran high behavior led to breakthrough in artificial intelligence. Professor Chinwei, watching his mixed-species class tackle a problem set, felt deep satisfaction. This was humanity's true weapon. Not their ships or technology, but their ability to bring out the best in others. Remember, he told his students, diversity isn't just a nice ideal. It's a survival strategy. Every species brings unique perspectives. When we combine them, we become greater than the sum of our parts. His words were proven daily. The galaxy was entering a new golden age, driven by cooperation rather than competition. But golden ages attract predators, and the galaxy was vast with many dark corners. In the unexplored regions beyond the rim, something stirred. Ancient sensors detected the energy signatures of the new Federation technology. Calculations were made. Decisions reached. After eons of dormancy, the harvesters began to wake. They were a species so old that even the ancients considered them myth. They had survived by consuming civilizations at their peak, feeding on the energy of progress itself. The last great galactic civilization had been their feast 10 million years ago. Now, they sensed a new meal preparing itself. The first signs were subtle. Scout ships vanishing in the outer systems. Sensor ghosts that appeared and disappeared too quickly to track. Radio signals from dead stars that shouldn't exist. Admiral Chun noticed the patterns first. Her years of military experience screamed warnings, even as others dismissed the incidents as coincidence. Something's probing our defenses, she told the Federation Council during an emergency session. These aren't random disappearances. Someone or something is testing our responses. President Vasquez studied the data. Could it be resistance cells? Hegemony remnants? No. Chin shook her head. This is too coordinated, too careful. Whatever this is, they're studying us like we're specimens. I recommend we go to yellow alert across all sectors. Some council members thought she was being paranoid. The Federation seemed invincible, their technology unmatched. What could threaten them? They got their answer 3 days later. The colony world of New Eden, home to 50 million humans and allied species, sent out a standard morning broadcast. Then, nothing. No distress signal. No attack warnings, just silence. The rapid response fleet arrived within hours to find empty space. Not destroyed, not conquered, gone. The entire planet, its moons, even the local asteroid belt had simply vanished. Only a gravitational anomaly remained, as if something had scooped out a section of reality itself. Then came the message, broadcast on all frequencies in perfect galactic standard. We are the harvesters. Your civilization has ripened. The feast begins. For the first time since their return, humanity faced an enemy that might actually match them. The harvesters didn't use conventional weapons or tactics. They consumed entire star systems, converting matter and energy into fuel for their eternal hunger. The galaxy held its breath. Would humanity's seemingly invincible technology be enough? Or had their rapid expansion attracted the attention of something beyond even their capabilities? Admiral Chin stood on the bridge of the Nemesis, staring at the empty space where New Eden had been. 50 million souls gone without a trace. The rescue mission had become a war for survival. All ships, battle stations, she commanded. Send word to Earth. Tell them the real test has begun. Across the galaxy, Federation forces mobilized. Allied species, many of whom had benefited from human generosity, offered their support. The transformation of the galaxy had created bonds that even extinction-level threats couldn't break. The irony wasn't lost on Chun. Humanity had returned to rescue their lost people and ended up becoming the galaxy's defenders against an ancient evil. But perhaps that had always been their destiny, not just to survive, but to ensure everyone's survival. As reports flooded in of more systems going dark, Chen allowed herself a grim smile. The harvesters thought they were beginning a feast. They were about to learn that humanity had evolved beyond mere prey. The war for the galaxy's future was about to begin, and humanity would face it not alone, but united with the species they had lifted up. The unknown warship detected in deep space had started a revolution. Now that revolution would be tested by fire. The first battle against the harvesters changed everything the galaxy thought it knew about warfare. When their World Eater ship materialized at the edge of the Proximus system, it defied comprehension. The vessel wasn't built. It was grown, a living organism the size of Jupiter's moon, with biomechanical tentacles that could stretch across astronomical units. Admiral Chun watched from the Nemesis as the monstrosity approached Proxima Colony, home to 30 million souls. The evacuation was already underway, but they needed time. All ships, engage at maximum range, she ordered. Target the feeding appendages. The combined Federation and Allied fleet opened fire. Beams of exotic energy, missiles that phased through dimensions, Projectiles accelerated to near light speed. Everything they had streaked toward the harvester. The attacks hit home, carving deep wounds in the creature's flesh. But even as they watched, the damage healed. The harvester's body rippled and adapted, developing armor where it had been hurt, growing new defensive organs in real time. "It's learning from our attacks," the tactical officer reported, horror creeping into his voice. "Each hit makes it stronger." Chen's mind raced. Traditional warfare wouldn't work against an enemy that evolved during combat. They needed a new approach. Science team analysis. What's powering that thing? The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Kenji Tanaka, the fleet's xenobiologist, had been studying the sensor readings with growing fascination. "Admiral, it's not just a ship or creature. It's a controlled singularity wrapped in biological matter. The harvesters have literally weaponized black holes, using them as power sources and digestive systems. Can we disrupt it? Possibly, but we need to get inside its event horizon envelope. That's a suicide mission." Chun turned to her crew. "I need volunteers for a boarding action. We're going inside that thing." Every hand on the bridge rose. The assault shuttles launched while the fleet maintained covering fire. Chun led the strike team personally, guiding their craft through the forest of writhing tentacles. They landed on what passed for the creature's skin, a surface that shifted between solid and liquid, organic and mechanical. "Breach charges won't work," the demolitions expert reported. "The hull's absorbing the energy." "Then we go in the old-fashioned way." Chun drew her plasma cutter. "Sometimes the primitive approach is best." They carved their way inside, entering a nightmare of biological corridors that pulsed with alien life. The harvester's antibodies attacked immediately. Creatures that seemed made of living shadow, adapting to each weapon used against them. The team fought their way deeper, losing people with every meter gained. But they pressed on, driven by the knowledge that billions of lives hung in the balance. Finally, they reached what Dr. Tanaka identified as the creature's core, a chamber where reality itself seemed to bend. At its center hung a sphere of absolute darkness, a captive black hole that powered the entire organism. "How do we kill it?" Chen asked. Tanaka's face was grim behind his helmet. "We don't kill it. We set it free." The plan was insane, but it was their only chance. Using every explosive they had, combined with experimental Federation singularity manipulators, they would destabilize the containment field holding the black hole. Without its power source, the harvester would die. Of course, releasing an uncontrolled singularity would also kill everyone on the strike team. Chun opened a channel to the fleet. "This is Admiral Chun. We found the target. Beginning final approach. Tell Earth. Tell them we held the line." They set the charges and began the countdown. But as the timer reached 0, something extraordinary happened. Space around them twisted, and suddenly the strike team was back on the Nemesis bridge, transported out at the last second. "What the hell?" Chin gasped. "Compliments of your allies, Admiral," came a transmission. It was from the Etherian ship Whisper of Stars. "We may not have your weapons, but we've been perfecting teleportation for millennia. No one gets left behind." The harvester ship screamed, a sound that somehow traveled through vacuum and made every soul in the system shudder. The captive black hole, suddenly free, began consuming its captor from within. The massive bio-ship collapsed in on itself, its death throes creating gravitational waves that made nearby ships dance like leaves in a hurricane. When it was over, only an expanding cloud of exotic particles remained. The victory celebrations were short-lived. Long-range sensors detected more harvester signatures, dozens of them converging from the galactic rim. The destroyed ship had been a scout. The main force was coming. An emergency summit was called on Haven Station, the massive structure humanity had built as a symbol of galactic unity. Representatives from every major species attended, fear and determination mixing in equal measure. President Vasquez addressed the assembly. "We've proven the harvesters can be killed, but we can't fight them one at a time. We need a coordinated defense, using every advantage each species brings." The VOM Collective's speaker pulsed. "Our biotechnology could create viruses targeted at their organic components. The Machina Syndicate can provide AI coordination for fleet movements, their representative added. Kothran hive minds can process battle data in real time. Dex offered, having risen to represent his people. One by one, every species pledged their unique capabilities. The galaxy had united not through conquest, but through crisis. The preparation was frantic. Human technology was merged with alien innovations to create hybrid weapons. Kothran strategic instincts guided Etherian stealth ships. Vom biological weapons were delivered by human missiles. The diversity that had once divided them became their greatest strength. The Federation also revealed weapons they had hoped never to use. Planet-killer arrays that could crack worlds like eggs. Temporal weapons that could age enemies to dust or reverse them to component atoms. The causality cannon was replicated and distributed to key defensive positions. But perhaps the most powerful weapon was hope itself. On thousands of worlds, species that had been uplifted by humanity now stood ready to defend their benefactors. Children who had learned in integrated schools volunteered for support positions. Artists created propaganda that stirred souls across species boundaries. Scientists shared their most guarded secrets. When the Harvester fleet arrived, they found not a collection of separate civilizations, but a united galaxy. The Battle of the Line, as historians would later call it, raged across a dozen star systems simultaneously. Harvester bio ships met Federation dreadnoughts in clashes that lit up the void. Allied species performed acts of heroism that would become legend. The Etherian fleet, nearly invisible to sensors, infiltrated Harvester formations and planted antimatter bombs in their feeding organs. Vom biowarriors infected Harvester organisms with viruses that turned their adaptation abilities against them. Kothran hive-coordinated fighter swarms struck with perfect precision, but the Harvesters learned and adapted. For every tactic that worked once, they developed counters. Ships thought destroyed would regenerate and return stronger. The Allied forces were slowly being pushed back. In the command center on Haven Station, Admiral Chun studied the battle map with growing concern. They were holding but barely, and intelligence suggested this was only a fraction of the Harvester forces. "We need a new strategy," she told the Joint Command. "Something they can't adapt to." The answer came from an unlikely source, the Ancient Assembly. Elder Yalith materialized in the command center, her crystalline form shimmering with urgency. "Admiral Chun, we've been searching our oldest archives. The Harvesters were defeated once before, millions of years ago. Not through weapons, but through starvation." "Explain." "They feed on progress, on the energy of advancing civilizations. The ancient races defeated them by going dark, shutting down all technology, reverting to pre-spaceflight existence. The Harvesters couldn't feed on nothing, so they went dormant." Chun frowned. "You're suggesting we abandon everything we've built?" "No." Yalitha's form pulsed. "I'm suggesting we poison their food supply." The plan was audacious. Instead of fighting the Harvesters directly, they would contaminate what they fed on. Federation scientists worked with ancient knowledge to create a technovirus that would infect any technology the Harvesters consumed, spreading through their biomechanical systems like cancer. But delivering it would require sacrifice. Ships would have to be deliberately fed to the Harvesters, their crews staying aboard to ensure the infection took hold. Volunteers came forward by the thousands. Humans who had been saved from slavery, aliens who had been uplifted from poverty, entire crews who had formed bonds across species lines, all willing to die for the galaxy they were building together. Captain Lisa Park, James's daughter who had followed him into service, commanded one of the poisoned ships. As her vessel was drawn into a Harvester's maw, she broadcast on all frequencies. "This is Captain Park. We go into the dark so that light may survive. Remember us not with sorrow, but with the promise that our sacrifice will not be in vain. Humanity endures. The galaxy endures. Together, we are eternal." Her ship vanished into the Harvester's feeding organ. For long moments, nothing happened. Then, the massive bioship shuddered. Its movements became erratic. The smooth adaptation that had made it so dangerous turned chaotic as the virus spread through its systems. The Harvester began consuming itself, its own adaptive mechanisms turned against it. The infection spread to other ships through their psychic connections, racing through the fleet like wildfire. But the harvesters weren't finished. In their death throes, they released something new, spores that drifted through space, too small for conventional weapons to target. Where they landed, they began growing new harvesters, smaller, but more numerous. It's a generational attack, Dr. Tanaka reported. They're trying to seed the galaxy with their offspring. The response required every bit of cooperation the Allied forces had built. Von Bio ships released targeted bacteriophages. Human nanoswarms hunted spores at the molecular level. Etherian phase shifters created pocket dimensions to trap spore clouds. Every species contributed their expertise to the cleansing. The battle raged for weeks. Systems were lost and retaken. Heroes emerged from every species, like the Machina unit that held off 3 harvesters while colonies evacuated, or the human teenager who figured out how to turn fabricators into spore hunters. Slowly, painfully the tide turned. The harvester fleet, poisoned from within and assaulted from without, began to falter. Their adaptation, their greatest strength, became their weakness as the technovirus used it to spread faster. The final harvester fell in the Sagittarius system, brought down by a combined assault from ships of 30 different species. As it died, it broadcast a final message. We are eternal. We will return when you ripen again. The feast is patient. In the aftermath, as the galaxy counted its losses and celebrated survival, Admiral Chen stood before the Galactic Council. They'll be back, she said simply. Maybe not for 1,000,000 years, but they'll return. The question is, what will they find when they do? President Vasquez rose to answer. They'll find what they found this time, but stronger. A galaxy united not by force, but by choice. Species that see diversity as strength, not weakness. They'll find that humanity's greatest conquest wasn't territory or resources. It was hearts and minds. The rebuilding began immediately. Worlds devastated by the war were reconstructed better than before. The technologies developed for warfare were repurposed for peace. The bonds forged in battle became the foundation for a new galactic civilization. On Haven Station, a memorial was erected to those who had fallen. Names from every species were etched in crystal that would last until the stars burned out. At its center stood a simple inscription. They gave their tomorrows for our today. In unity, we honor them. In diversity, we succeed. The unknown warship that had appeared in deep space had started as a rescue mission. It had become a revolution. And now, tested by fire and forged in shared sacrifice, that revolution had given birth to something unprecedented, a truly united galaxy. But the story wasn't over. Out in the void, in hidden corners and forgotten systems, there were still humans to find, still civilizations to uplift, still futures to build. The Nemesis, scarred but unbroken, prepared for its next mission. Admiral Chun, promoted to Fleet Admiral for her service, chose to remain with her ship. There's work to be done, she told her crew. The harvesters taught us that we're stronger together. Now we need to make sure that lesson is never forgotten. As the ship jumped to its next destination, the galaxy behind them continued its transformation. Children of 100 species played together in schools built on cooperation. Scientists shared discoveries that would have been hoarded as secrets in the old days. Artists created works that blended traditions from across the stars. The age of division was ending. The age of unity had begun. And at its heart was the simple truth humanity had brought back from their exile. Every life has value. Every species has something to contribute. And together, they were greater than the sum of their parts. The unknown warship had been detected in deep space, human-built, and ready to conquer. But its greatest conquest had been the fear and prejudice that had divided the galaxy for so long. In their place grew something beautiful, hope. 10 years had passed since the Harvester War, and the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. The memorial on Haven Station attracted millions of pilgrims annually, each leaving offerings from their homeworlds. But while the galaxy celebrated its new golden age, Fleet Admiral Chun pursued a mystery that had haunted humanity since their return. During the desperate fight against the Harvesters, they had received help from an unexpected source. Tactical data had appeared in Federation computers, showing Harvester weak points no scan had detected. Reinforcements had arrived at critical moments with no record of deployment. Someone or something had been helping from the shadows. Chun stood on the bridge of the Nemesis, now flagship of the combined Galactic Defense Fleet, studying the latest intelligence. Pattern analysis suggested their mysterious ally operated from somewhere in the Void Sector, a region of dead space that most species avoided. "Admiral, we're approaching the coordinates," her navigator announced. But sensors show nothing. Just empty space. "Maintain course," Chen ordered. Her instincts, honed by decades of warfare, told her they were close to something important. Then, space itself rippled like water, and they were somewhere else entirely. The stars were wrong. The cosmic background radiation had a different signature, and directly ahead hung a sight that made the entire bridge crew gasp. It was a Dyson sphere, but built on a scale that defied comprehension. The artificial structure enclosed not just one star, but an entire cluster, its surface area equivalent to millions of Earths. And every inch of it showed clear signs of human architecture, evolved far beyond current Federation technology. "Admiral Chun," a voice spoke directly into their minds, warm and welcoming. "We've been waiting for you. Permission to come aboard." Chun nodded, and a figure materialized on the bridge. She was human, but with an ethereal quality that suggested great age and wisdom. Her eyes held the weight of millennia. "I am Director Maya Singh, representing the Transcendent Collective. Welcome to Sanctuary." "The Transcendent Collective?" Chun kept her voice steady despite her racing thoughts. "You're human?" Maya smiled. We are. It's complicated. Perhaps it's better if we show you." The Nemesis was guided to a docking facility that could have held 1,000 ships. As Chun and her senior staff disembarked, they entered a world that challenged their understanding of what humanity could become. The city they entered wasn't built. It was grown, shaped from materials that responded to thought. Buildings flowed like water, frozen in graceful forms. Gardens floated in null-gravity bubbles, their plants bearing fruit that glowed with inner light. And everywhere there were people. But these humans were different. Some had adapted to zero gravity, so completely they seemed to swim through air. Others showed cybernetic enhancements, so seamless that machine and flesh were indistinguishable. A few appeared to exist partially in other dimensions, flickering in and out of normal space. 5,000 years ago, Maya explained as she led them through the wonder, the colony ship Hope's Dream wasn't destroyed. It fell through a cosmic anomaly into this pocket dimension. Cut off in a galaxy, facing extinction, we had two choices, evolve or die. She gestured to a vast chamber where humans worked alongside AI constructs so advanced they were indistinguishable from living beings. We chose evolution, not just technological, but biological, psychological, even spiritual. We transcended the limitations of baseline humanity while never forgetting what made us human. "Why didn't you contact us?" Chen asked. "When the Federation returned to the galaxy, why stay hidden?" Maya's expression grew sad. "Because we weren't sure you were ready. The power we've accumulated here could destroy the galaxy as easily as save it. We needed to know that humanity had grown beyond its old tendencies toward conquest and domination." She led them to an observation deck that showed the full scope of Sanctuary. Millions of humans lived here, each pursuing paths of development that baseline humans could barely comprehend. Artists who painted with gravity itself. Scientists who unraveled the equations of existence. Warriors who had turned combat into a meditation that could split atoms with thought. "The Harvester War was your test," Maya continued. "Not just humanity's, but the entire galaxy's. When you chose unity over division, when species put aside ancient hatreds to face a common threat, we knew it was time. You helped us," Chin said. "It wasn't a question. We did. The tactical data, the convenient reinforcements, the lucky discoveries that turned the tide. We couldn't intervene directly without revealing ourselves, but We couldn't let the galaxy fall. You had proven yourselves worthy of survival. They were taken to the collective's council chamber, where representatives of humanity's various evolutionary paths gathered. Some appeared baseline human. Others were so transformed they barely seemed the same species. Yet all shared a common purpose. The harvesters will return, the council speaker said, his voice resonating with harmonics that touched the soul. Not in 1,000,000 years, but in 1,000. They're already adapting to your victory, evolving new strategies in dark spaces between galaxies. When they come again, the galaxy will need more than unity. It will need to transcend its current limitations. Which is why you're revealing yourselves now. Shin understood. Precisely. We offer to share our knowledge, our techniques for guided evolution, not just with humanity, but with all species willing to grow. But this isn't a gift to be given lightly. Evolution without wisdom leads to destruction. Power without purpose creates tyrants. Over the following days, Chun and her team were shown wonders that challenged every assumption. Medical technology that could cure death itself, but whose users had to grapple with the meaning of mortality. Weapons that could unmake reality, wielded by warriors who spent decades learning when not to use them. Mental enhancements that granted godlike intelligence, balanced by spiritual practices that maintained humility. This is what awaits, Maya told them. Not just survival, but transformation. The question is the galaxy ready? Chun thought of all they had built in the last decade. The schools where young minds learned without prejudice. The colonies where former enemies worked side by side. The fleets where a dozen species served together in harmony. We're ready to begin, she said finally. Not to rush toward power, but to grow toward wisdom. The integration began slowly. Sanctuary revealed itself to the galaxy not as conquerors or saviors, but as teachers and guides. Representatives from the transcendent collective visited worlds, offering knowledge to those ready to receive it. The reaction was mixed. Some species embraced the opportunity eagerly. Others held back, fearful of losing their identity. The ancients debated for months before sending their first students. The Vom Collective saw it as the next step in their biological mastery. The Machina Syndicate was fascinated by the merger of organic and artificial intelligence. On Earth, President Vasquez convened a special session to address humanity's scattered colonies. Our lost brothers and sisters have returned, she announced. But they return not as the humans who left, but as what we might become. The choice before us is not whether to accept their gifts, but how to use them wisely. Academies were established where baseline species could begin the journey of transcendence. The process was slow, deliberate, with as much emphasis on philosophy and ethics as on enhancement. Students learned that power without wisdom was destruction, that evolution without compassion was mere change. Young Tam Morrison was among the first wave of students. A war orphan who had been rescued from slavery, she had grown up in the integrated schools and saw no barriers between species. Her best friends were a young Kothra named Click and an Etherian called Whisper. Together, they entered the academy on Haven Prime, determined to prepare for the Harvester's return. The training was unlike anything they had imagined. Yes, they learned to enhance their bodies and minds, but they also studied art, philosophy, and meditation. They were taught that true strength came not from individual power, but from connection to others. You are not becoming gods. Their instructor, a transcendent human named David, told them. You are becoming bridges, links between what was and what will be. The galaxy's survival depends not on creating super beings, but on elevating everyone together. As the months passed, changes began. Tam found she could interface directly with computer systems, her thoughts flowing through data streams like water. Click developed a hive sense that extended beyond his species, creating tactical awareness that spanned star systems. Whisper learned to phase not just through space, but through time, seeing probability threads that guided optimal futures. But with each advancement came responsibility. They were taught to use their abilities only when necessary, to remember that those without enhancement were not inferior, just at a different point in their journey. The galaxy watched the first graduates with a mixture of awe and apprehension. These young beings, representing a dozen species, demonstrated capabilities that seemed like magic. But, more importantly, they demonstrated wisdom beyond their years. When pirates attacked a refugee convoy, the enhanced response team didn't simply destroy the attackers. They disabled their ships, offered the pirates a choice between imprisonment or rehabilitation, and then helped the refugees establish defenses that would prevent future attacks. Power tempered by mercy. But not everyone approved of the changes. A faction calling itself the Purest Alliance emerged, arguing that transcendence would destroy what made each species unique. They sabotaged academy facilities, attacked enhanced individuals, and spread propaganda about the dangers of evolution. The response from the enhanced community was telling. Instead of crushing the opposition, they invited dialogue. Town halls were held where fears could be expressed, concerns addressed. Many purists, seeing that enhancement didn't mean abandonment of cultural identity, changed their views. Others remained opposed, but were allowed to establish colonies where they could maintain traditional ways. Diversity includes the right to remain as you are, Maya Singh explained during a galaxy-wide broadcast. We offer tools, not mandates. The choice to evolve must always be free. As years passed, the galaxy settled into a new equilibrium. Enhanced and baseline individuals worked together, each contributing their unique perspectives. The technologies gained from Sanctuary improved life, even for those who chose not to undergo transformation. Medical advances eliminated most diseases. Agricultural improvements ended hunger. Energy solutions powered civilizations without depleting resources. Chun, now in her 70s but kept vital by medical science, stood once again on the memorial at Haven Station. But this time, she wasn't alone. Representatives from every species stood with her, many showing signs of enhancement, all united in purpose. 20 years ago, an unknown warship appeared in our space. She addressed the gathered multitudes. It began a chain of events that transformed our galaxy. We faced extinction and survived. We've been offered godhood and chosen wisdom instead. We've proven that diversity and unity are not opposites, but partners. She paused, looking at the stars where long-range sensors had detected troubling signs. The harvesters were stirring, testing the boundaries of their prison dimension, evolving in response to their defeat. They're coming, she said simply. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon enough. When they arrive, they'll find a galaxy transformed, not just in power, but in purpose. They hunger for civilizations at their peak. They'll find something more, civilizations that have transcended their peaks and chosen to lift others rather than stand alone. The crowd, human and alien, enhanced and baseline, young and old, responded with a roar of determination. They have been tested by external threats and internal divisions. They have been offered power and chosen wisdom. They have faced the choice between unity and supremacy and chosen to stand together. In the depths of Sanctuary, the transcendent collective monitored probability streams. The future remained uncertain, branches of possibility spreading like a cosmic tree. But one thing remained constant across all timelines. The galaxy's strength lay not in any single species or technology, but in the bonds they had forged. The unknown warship had been detected, human-built, and ready to conquer. It had conquered, not through force, but through the infectious idea that every being had value, that diversity was strength, that together they could face any threat. As the galaxy prepared for the challenges ahead, children in integrated schools learned the real lesson of humanity's return. It wasn't about the power of human technology or the might of human warships. It was about the simple truth that when beings choose to see each other as family rather than competition, there is no force in the universe that could defeat them. The transcendent humans had evolved beyond baseline humanity's limitations, but they had kept humanity's greatest strength, the ability to inspire others to become more than they were. And that inspiration had spread across the stars, creating a civilization that would echo through eternity. In a quiet moment, Admiral Chun retired to her quarters and opened a secure channel to Earth. Her granddaughter appeared on the screen, wearing the uniform of the Galactic Integration Corps. "How's the next generation doing?" Chun asked. Her granddaughter smiled, and in that smile was the future. "We're ready, Grandma. Whatever comes, we'll face it together. Human and alien, enhanced, and baseline all united." The unknown warship started something that can't be stopped. Chun nodded, feeling the weight of years lift from her shoulders. The mission that had begun with rescuing lost humans had become something greater, the birth of a truly galactic civilization. And while challenges remained, while the harvesters grew stronger in the dark, she knew they would be met by something even more powerful. Not weapons, not technology, not even transcendence itself, but by the simple, unbreakable truth that beings who choose to stand together, who choose to lift each other up, who choose love over fear and unity over division, create a force that no darkness can overcome. The unknown warship had been detected in deep space, human-built, and ready to conquer. And conquer it had, one heart, one mind, one soul at a time, until the very fabric of the galaxy had been rewoven into something beautiful, strong, and eternal. The story of humanity's return was ending. The story of the galaxy's transcendence had just begun. Unknown warship detected in deep space, human-built, and ready to conquer. HFY Sci-Fi Stories.